After the massive cliffhanger at the end of the first Halloween, fans were starting to wonder whether a sequel was ever actually going to happen. The movie was a massive success, so it made sense for a sequel to be released. Finally, 4 years after the original's release, we got Halloween 2. John Carpenter stepped down from the director's chair and wrote the movie with co-writer of the original movie, Deborah Hill. The movie literally starts exactly where the previous movie ends. In fact, the movie starts with the final scene of the last movie. Michael Myers gets away and survives getting shot. Dr. Loomis then has to find him. The opening credits are essentially the same as the previous movie, except when it gets close to the screen, the pumpkin rips over to reveal a skull. I much prefer this opening to the previous movie, and it's one of my favourite moments in the whole movie. The theme song has also been remade and has a much more synth-heavy sound to it. I also prefer the theme song to the original, and it's probably my favourite version of the song in any of the movies. The movie pretty much just becomes the plot of the first movie again, but luckily instead of being a complete retread, it's very different. The film, similar to the previous movie, focuses mainly on Dr. Loomis and Laurie Strode. They essentially have two different plots that intertwine. Dr. Loomis is trying to catch Michael Myers, who is trying to kill Laurie Strode. However, instead of being in a house, it's set inside of a hospital. Laurie is taken to the hospital, and of course, Michael manages to find out exactly what hospital she's been taken to. Then he starts to kill off all the staff working at the hospital, so it's just him and Laurie. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis is racing to find out where Michael is gone and stop him before he kills anyone else. During Dr. Loomis's plot, we hear some more backstory about Michael Myers, including the reason why he's going after Laurie Strode. Essentially, Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister, who was adopted since Michael's parents didn't want him finding her. I've always felt that Dr. Loomis's part of the movie is the best. It's certainly the most interesting part of the movie. The Laurie Strode plot is definitely the source of the scares in the movie, but I've never been able to get into that part of the movie. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, I just massively prefer the other plot of the movie. The problem I have with Laurie's plot is that it's very obvious that the writers had no idea as of what to write. In fact, John Carpenter has even admitted to this in the past. However, the Dr. Loomis plot is much more interesting. Although it can be a bit silly. There is a scene where Dr. Loomis thinks that he's spotted Michael Myers, so he chases after him. While crossing the street, the person they are chasing gets hit by a police car, which then crashes into a van and explodes. I mean, Jesus Christ, a bit over the top. Of course it isn't actually Michael Myers, and the film then carries on. It would have been a bit awkward if they killed off the killer halfway into the 90-minute movie. There are a lot of jump scares everywhere, and most of them are false jump scares. You may have noticed that I constantly complain about jump scares, especially in modern horror movies. Well, I don't have a problem with them, I just have a problem with them either being overused or being used incorrectly. Take a movie such as the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. There are jump scares everywhere, and most of them are false jump scares. They never actually try to build up the suspense, and normally when it does happen, the killer just doesn't strike. He just makes the character scream and then disappears. But take something such as Insidious. All the jump scares in the movie, and yes, there are a lot of them, are whenever something creepy or genuinely scary is happening, whether it's a being jumping out of a closet or the red demon appearing out of nowhere. When a film actually builds up to the big scare and really pays off, it's done well. However, when we have a build up and it's just a cat, it's handled badly. That sadly happens a lot in this movie. The film is much more violent than the last movie. The previous movie doesn't show any blood at all, however in this film, there is a lot of it. There is a death scene where you see someone's face being put into hot water and you can see all of her skin peeling off. It's really disgusting and hard to watch. We didn't get anything like that in the previous movie. Of course, I'm not actually complaining. Probably one of my biggest problems with the movie is when it just copies the original movie. Whether it's big parts of the movie or whether it's simply Michael Myers' creepy random appearances in the dark. Halloween 4 onwards don't really copy much from the original. They copy some bits, but not as much as this film. Of course, most of them aren't as good as this film, but they still try to be original, at least Halloween 4 and 5 did. Also, there are a lot of times where I really wanted to shout at the characters and tell them to stop being stupid. For example, after Laurie escapes from the hospital, she hides inside of a car in the car park. Why doesn't she just run away? It's not like she has nowhere to run. There is a massive road you can run down. Michael Myers isn't going to run after you. He's slow as fuck. I've always felt that Halloween 2 should have been where the series officially ended. The first Halloween had a great ending, but there was no way that there wasn't going to be a sequel, so Halloween 2 was always going to happen. But I think after Halloween 2's ending, there shouldn't have been anything else. At the end of the movie, we see Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers die in a massive explosion. Michael slowly walks out the room on fire, but he collapses to his fiery death. It's a great way to end it, and I've never really understood how they could carry it on. Halloween 4 doesn't really give much of an explanation except that they didn't die in the explosion. I just think that Halloween 2 should have been the finale. Sometimes I don't consider the sequels to be canon except for maybe Halloween H2O, simply because I feel that the end we got with this film was the absolute end we should have gotten for the franchise. I've always been a fan of Halloween 2. It has some massive flaws, but as a continuation of a classic horror movie, I think it really did a good job. It's full of genuinely creepy moments, a lot of character development for Dr. Loomis, and a great ending. It's not my favourite film in the franchise, but it's extremely close. I give Halloween 2 a 9.5 out of 10.